is going on, Rotogrinders? Dean here. That's Dean 78904. If you want to get all technical, I mean, it's 5:30 on the East Coast, 2:30 West Coast, 4:30 Tennessee time. So of course, that means it's time for the flagship show here at Rotogrinders. It's called Grinderslive. Joining me today, you know, from such things as NASCAR, as the morning grind, which we'll talk about in a second as well. It's Stevie TPFL. What's going on, Stevie? How's Monday treating you?
I agree with Derek in YouTube chat. Let's make some money. This is a fun slate. It's not like it's a cut and dry slate. I mean, I feel like if you look at this slate as a whole, I feel like there's a lot of chalk, but I feel like there's a lot of leverage and a lot of pivots on this slate as well. So I think it's a fun slate. I'm glad to join you today, Dean. This is a good one. Like, we have a lot to talk about for it only being like a 6-game slate.
Yeah, I mentioned the morning grind. Do you want to talk about that now, or wait a few minutes as far as the promo, what's going down? Obviously, you're going to be celebrating the 1,000th number 1,000 as far as the morning grind podcast. Which, by the way, is there an asterisk by that? Because I hosted like 15 or 20 of those. Am I a part of that 1,000? Are those included? I'm just curious. I don't know.
Yeah, man. Like it is episode 1,000.
Oh.
It's actually like over 1,000 episodes, but I mean, there's been some stuff on the feed and stuff like that as well. But you know, we started on I just had it up a few minutes ago. We started on April 4th of 2016, so over 5 years ago.
Who was your first guest?
Me and Beer Makers did the first one. El Jefe was the second guest, so there you go. You know, it was a long time ago. So there's been a ton of people that have come on, but yeah, actual episode 1,000, you've done some stuff. Justin's done some stuff. A lot of people have done some stuff. You know, Man Gone and Sir Giant did some weekend stuff back in the day. So, I mean, the morning grind's been around for a long time. We're going to give out some weekly passes for MLB Premium. We're going to have some trivia and stuff for that. I found a couple old, like, RG hats that are like new with tags that I'm never going to wear. So I'm going to give out, you know, those as well. I have some fun stuff planned for that, but yeah, man, it's going to be fun. Episode 1,000. It's a good accomplishment.
Yeah, you're giving some stuff away. You kind of like you know, let's focus on that for a second. Do I have to listen? I have to listen to the podcast and I'm going to get details there. You said there's some trivia going on. Yeah,
Dean, you have to listen to the podcast.
I'm making sure that people know that like that's where they're going to be able to get themselves some free premium.
Yeah, you got to listen to the podcast. If you listen to the podcast, there's going to be details on how to win some stuff, but you got to listen to the podcast, Dean. Jeez.
I wanted to reiterate for those in chat, in case I was aware. I know about the promo. I know we talked about a pre-show, but I wanted to make sure that those in chat are aware they can get themselves some free RG Premium. And also, I was in the show last week, and I was saying on a short slate like tonight. It was like a Thursday slate. I was going to be in the show, but I had some technical issues, and I actually have to bring my laptop to the Apple store later on tonight. Not that anybody cares about that, but yeah, I'm a gamer, Stevie. Well, you're a gamer too, because you got to pee and you're going to be working through the show having to pee, and I'm working with my backup laptop. So, I mean, both of us are hopefully we come up clutch tonight. But I promised, I said, listen, during this very show, I wasn't on last week, but I'm going to give away a week free of RG Premium. Let's do that tonight. We're going to have producer Devin. How about this? Producer Devin comes up with a question. He comes up with something. He'll join the show later on. And of course, he asks the questions on behalf of the chat. Chat's in there. Hey, what up, chat? Do like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Do appreciate that. Helps keep the lights on. Ask questions regarding the slates, as far as this guy or that guy. Do you like this stack? If we don't talk about somebody, we're going to talk about a lot of players just because it's a 6-gamer and it's hard to avoid a lot of the stuff that that's going to be jumping around in your face, obviously. But and Devin again is going to ask those questions on your behalf. But maybe Devin will jump in and he'll ask a question to chat or ask a question to us, and we'll figure it out. Devin, I'm tasking you with this. We're going to give out 1 week free of RG Premium and about 15 minutes left in the show. There you go. As far as the slate tonight, Stevie, you said it's kind of sort of here, when we were talking pre-show, it was like it's cut and dry, but it's not cut and dry because it's baseball and goofy things happen and there's variance. It's super obvious, in my estimation, that like Houston and Cincinnati are the clear 2 best offenses. But again, goofy baseball things do happen. So, but that's what's great about being a baseball analyst, Stevie. You can be like, hey, I told you that was going to happen. I got it right. And when it doesn't go right, which happens a lot, because again, baseball, you just say, hey, goofy baseball things, variance. It's great, isn't it?
So this morning I was like, I liked like 3 or 4 stacks, Dean, and I like 3 or 4 pitchers. And when I started messing with lineups, I was like, I'm going to build one lineup because I really like Molly and I really like Alize and I like the Reds and I'm going to fade Houston. And I feel like if you're going to do that, building one lineup is fine. I'm not going to stack Houston and play like Darvish and the chalk. So I decided to kind of go on to what you're talking about, that I like this slate, but there is something that I like specific about this slate that I could do with one team. So doing a bunch of single entry stuff, and that's how I'm kind of approaching this slate. So I'm very, very passionate about a couple things on this slate. And I was like, I'm not going to make 150 teams, but if I was, I would be building around this core of, players. So that's kind of how I'm approaching this one.
You mentioned Molly. We'll talk about the pitchers in a second. And there's a chance we get a weak Minnesota lineup. Nelly Cruz, he left yesterday's game, or was he scratched? He has a neck. He's got an old neck. It's like, how old is his neck? Like 42, 43? It's an old neck. Nelson Cruz, the boomstick. He may not be in the lineup. The lineup's not out just yet for Minnesota. And Donaldson's a little bit dinged as well. I know, obviously, they have Buxton back, who's just freaking awesome. But Minnesota's lineup is not very deep, and it would definitely take a big hit if both Donaldson and Cruz are just one of those two. I would imagine that would be a bump as far as Male. Let's dive in and talk about the slate. And you mentioned Darvish. Speaking of injuries, he's going to face a Dodger team that almost definitely, the reports are that, Muncy won't be back until like tomorrow or the next day. Bellinger won't be back till tomorrow or the next day. And of course, Seager's out for the long haul. Very little lefty power in this lineup. We're expecting outside of maybe Gavin Lux. I mean, want to call Beatty lefty power, whatever. Not afraid of good old Matthew Beatty. Turner and Betts on the right side are obviously pretty solid, but Darvish against his former team, he's been good twice this year against this Dodger team, and it's kind of sort of some fraudulent Dodgers that will be cracking that lineup. Darvish, big name, but not like a lot of Ks. Not a monster K number, 29%, which is good. His K rate's good. His walk rate is good, but it's not phenomenal. It's not DeGrom good, who's currently pitching right now, and he's not left the game just yet because of injury, which is good to see. 21 pitches. 4 strikeouts. How good is your boy DeGrom?
And doesn't need the sticky stuff.
He's the very first person. There's your answer to our trivia question. He's the very first person. The sticky stuff protocol started today, like officially, where umpires are checking you out. And he got checked out after the first inning, and he's clean. And all his guys.
He doesn't need it, Dean. Yeah, he's a beast.
Yeah, well, you saw that Twitter thread, I suppose, right? Where all his teammates came out and just said, like, I think it was Millar. I think Millar said, I would wager my salary that he does not use it, which is pretty bold.
Yeah. I mean,
he came out clean, obviously.
He's a monster. So glad to see him pitching well. As far as Darvish goes, you mentioned it, around a 30% K rate, much higher strikeout rate against righties, and much better against righties, throughout his career. So I think he's going to be able to limit Betts and Turner, Will Smith. Like, those are the guys that I'm really worried about. I'm not worried about Lux. I'm not worried about Beatty. The bottom of this order is going to be pretty weak with Taylor, Pollock, and McKinstry. I think this is a spot Darvish goes out, and if you want to pay up for him, I definitely don't have anything to argue outside of I just like Tyler Mahle more.
Yeah, I want to ask you about Mahle in just a second. We do have 4 of the 6 umpires. Let's see, neutral for Savali and neutral for Gibson, neutral for Montas. Alzolay is neutral as well. Hitters umpire for Male, nothing extreme, just a hitters umpire as well for Happ. Extreme hitters umpire for the Houston game. So Odorizzi and Keegan Aiken have drawn an extreme hitters umpire, which makes, Houston, of course, is going to be, I think, the extreme chalk from a hitter's perspective. So talk to me about the Male. You've teased it a couple times. Why is Male your guy tonight?
Well, you mentioned it. Like Donaldson and Cruz, even if they're in the lineup, they're both banged up. Cruz is dealing with a neck injury. Donaldson's dealing with a calf injury. If they're out of the lineup, this lineup's really weak. We're already likely getting Jeffers. We're likely getting Sano. They're big strikeout guys. We know Larnach is a big strikeout guy as well. So I feel like if one of them sits, even just one of them sits, I think it's huge just in general. But if they both sit, this is a really weak lineup. Tyler Mahle is a guy that can strike out both sides of the plate. He has big-time strikeout side stuff to both sides of the plate. He has a slider that he uses against righties, and he has like a split, kind of like a split fastball type movement that he uses against lefties. It's kind of like a changeup, but moves like a splitter that he uses against lefties. So he can strike out both sides of the plate. I think this is a great spot for him. It's one of the better ballparks and one of the better conditions outside of like Wrigley Field as far as pitchers are concerned on this slate. So I just think Mahle's the guy. I think he's going to outscore Darvish today, and putting my money where my mouth is.
Yeah, he's going to spike in his K rate as well too. He's actually the highest K rate pitcher on the slate. Not that with 29 to hook, I think what it is. I kind of ran the numbers earlier. Let's see, what is the actual percentage? If you want to get all technical, 29.6% as far as Ks on the season there for Mahle. And of late, 12 last time out against Milwaukee. I made great in a curve because it's Milwaukee, but even before that, 6 versus Colorado, 8 versus St. Louis, and 8 versus Chicago. He's in good form, and not a lot of Ks there against Washington, but he's pretty solid against Washington as well. I like Mahle. It's really close as far as my SP2, but also just to clean up the Darvish thing, I think we're going to see a playoff type atmosphere. Like that game's going to be fun. Dodgers and Padres. If I remember correctly, wasn't that like the beginning of the year? Like we talked about, wasn't that like an incredible series? Start the season, we're like, oh, we're going to get 18 more of these or 19 more of these, whatever it is. Yeah. And everybody assumes, well, I guess it doesn't really work math-wise, but because they're probably not going to face each other in the NL championship, just the kind of the way how with the wild card works. At some point, they'll probably cross paths. But, it's going to be an electric crowd. I assume the crowds they're expanding across the country. Just feels like it's going to be a fun playoff-type atmosphere. And I think the players feed off that to some degree. And maybe they let Darvish go an extra inning or so, and he's got one of the longest leashes in all of baseball. By the way, who's the top 3 leash on this slate that we haven't talked about yet? Not a very sexy name as far as pitches thrown per game. Number three in the league. Who is it on this slate?
Is it Montas?
It's not Montas. No, it's Savali.
Oakland lets their guys go so deep. That's the only reason I guessed him.
I feel like he's on the list too, like top 25 or top 30 or something like that. But Savali, I want to say was 3rd and like Beavers 5. And Savali, not sexy at all, but it's a very good environment today for pitching in Chicago. I was looking at the old Kevin Roth weather edge. Let me give it a refresh, see if things change there. But I know it's relatively cold and the wind's blowing in. Let's see, we have 101 previous games, Stevie. Is that a big enough sample for you? 101 games?
I mean, yeah. Especially when it comes to wind and Wrigley. Like, I feel like any kind of sample size helps us when it comes to those types of things. So, I mean, I think you play both pitchers in this game. You're going to see home runs kind of decrease in this game. You're going to see runs kind of decrease in this game. I don't think it really is like something might like help with the strikeouts, but luckily like Savali and Alzolay both have a little bit of strikeout upside. I think Alzolay a little bit more strike upside, except for Cleveland doesn't strike out as much. And then the Cubs definitely strike out a ton, and Savali doesn't strike out as many people as Alzolay. So I like both these guys. I think they're both in play. My biggest concern with Alzolay is like, he had a blister. He's been throwing. Are they going to let him go? Is his finger going to hold up? And the lineup came out. Jose Ramirez is in the lineup. We didn't want to see him in the lineup. He's kind of banged up right now. But you look at the strikeout rate for this lineup in 2021, and they have a 17% K rate. So I worry about that. But I think that, like, if you want to play Savali or Alzolay, I'm not going to talk you off of either one of those guys.
Yeah, that's my concern as well for Azalea. Probably doesn't get the quality start over there in Fando. I don't imagine he goes 6. And like you said, the blister, a lot of times the blisters like pop back up again. He really knows how it's going to go down. And he's just not a guy that goes deep as is. But, he's also, if you watch him, like he's one of those guys that can get in the groove and just strike out a bunch of dudes. And again, well, I didn't clean up as far as the weather there, but 101 previous games. The guys have the weather edge tool. You guys take a look at yourself. If not, get yourself some RG Premium, $10 off the first month. This is free with the baseball package. It's free with the all-inclusive package with everything. Comes with all the sports with the exception of NASCAR. Either way, you guys want to make it work, $10 off your first month. We'll go ahead and drop that link in chat. But 37.9% decrease in homers in 101 games, 16.5% decrease in runs, and 19.3% decrease in ERA when you have similar games to this similar weather in this ballpark, which is currently 65 with the wind blowing in at 12 miles per hour. But I just pulled it up on the fly. Savali fifth as far as pitches thrown. Bauer, Bieber, Wheeler, Rodon, Savali, Cole. And you did mention, it's interesting, you mentioned Montes. He's 20th. 19th is teammate Manaya. 21st is teammate Bassett. So
they let those guys go in Oakland, man. If they're pitching well, they'll let them go. And, that's obviously the best thing when it comes to trying to pick pitchers on the slate. And honestly, the more I think about it, the more I might play Savali over Alizé, just kind of looking at ownership. It's like almost a third of the ownership to play Savali. And there's actually a lot more strikeouts in this Chicago lineup than the Cleveland lineup. So I originally came on the show and I was like, I'm not changing anything. And now I've changed my shortstop and my pitcher. So thanks, Dean.
And we're only like 15 minutes in.
I know.
Yeah, I mean, on the season, Savali, 20% K is not spectacular. But, again, the extra pitches matter. Like, opportunity matters. Just being on the mound counts. Throwing 20 more pitches could make a difference. And, the walk rate's really solid as well, too. And he's a guy that can. I know he's in a National League park and there's, pinch hits and all that. But he's a guy that can go 7 or 8 innings. Assuming, the Chicago team is kind of punchless. We're not expecting a ton of offense in this game. Like you said, there's some Ks there as well. Contreras, Wisdom, has shown a ton of power, but he's also struck out 30% of the time. Baez, of course, same deal to an even greater deal, 37% as far as striking out. Collectively, we're looking at 25%. And you said on the other side, do we have the Cleveland lineup? Okay, I wasn't sure if Ramirez was going to play or not. Ramirez is cracking the lineup. He's obviously the one big stick there. It's a really contact-heavy lineup for Cleveland, so yeah, I think I'm with you. I think Size prefers Savali with the longer leash and the greater K upside. Well, it's weird to say that because Azalea is the better strikeout pitcher, but if he sees 5 or 6 or 7 less hitters, then it kind of sort of evens out. But collectively, we're looking at 17.4% as far as striking out in this Cleveland side. Not a lot of imposing bats, but they will make contact. Working our way down, Urias against San Diego. Yeah.
I mean, it all depends on the lineup. I said this on the podcast. We don't have that lineup yet. If Tatis is out of the lineup, I think he makes a huge enough, a big enough difference where you're like, all right, well, maybe you don't have to worry as much about Pham, Machado, and Myers. And if Tatis is out, we're getting a weak bat. Plus, we're probably still getting Gresham and Hosmer, lefty. This guy has a 1% walk rate against lefties and a 31% K rate against lefties on the season. So I want to see what the lineup looks like. I think tournament-wise, he should be somebody that is definitely in the conversation because we're not looking at a ton of big strikeout pitchers on the slate as well. So who can I get different with? Well, Urias is definitely somebody that you can get different with on this slate as of right now. But I think if Tatis is in there, it makes a huge difference. I think that Tatis offers, the lineup more, protection in general. So, I mean, I think you're kind of waiting to see what the lineup looks like. But overall, I like the ownership on Urias, under 10%, 6-game slate. It's easy way to get different and a guy that can put up 25 plus fantasy points.
I assumed Tatis is going to be in. I think he even came out and said
he's supposed to be in.
Yeah. We'll see. And we might get a late lineup on that. It'll make Tatis kind of sort of someone interesting. Well, he's always interesting, but on a 6-game slate, Tatis is probably going to be reasonably low owned. I would guess less than 10% for one of the best hitters in all of baseball. And, just play the ownership game. And it's not like Urias is unhittable. All right. Anything else that's of note as far as the pitchers? I think, okay, Aiken, Happ, Anderson, Kelly, I'm not roster for any of those guys. The interesting one to kind of open up salary for me is DK specific, obviously, as an SB2. Well, Kyle Gibson. Kyle Gibson's just perfectly fine. He's totally serviceable. He'll put up his 14 points and he's 6.3K and he gives you a different shuffle. And, not that like you're missing out, like you mentioned, not these monster K rates. There's probably not any pitcher that's going to put up more like 27, 28, 29 pitches. I think it can be Darvish. I think he's a guy that I could see a big game out of him tonight. I like Darvish a good bit. We'll see. Stay tuned. But your thoughts as far as Gibson or any of these other cheapies that I might have just kind of glossed over?
Well, I think it's crazy that Happ and Gibson or Happ and Odorizzi are getting any kind of love on DraftKings. We're looking at double-digit projected ownership for both these guys. Odorizzi kind of being like the popular play down here. I think if you're playing anybody down here, it should be Kyle Gibson. I'm with you. Like when you're just looking at like the overall matchups here, yeah, Oakland seems like a scary lineup, but like the bottom of this lineup's terrible. Andrus, Murphy, Pinder, even like Jed Lowry, he's obviously not the same hitter. Mitch Moreland's not the same hitter. And Laureano strikes out a ton. So, like, if you can just kind of get around, Kemp is going to make contact at the top of the order. Kana is always a power guy. Olson's always a power guy. But the bottom of this order kind of struggles. So, I think, obviously you can play bats against Kyle Gibson anytime. But if you're playing a cheap pitcher, he would be the guy. Again, I'm probably playing Molly and Seville, but I think Gibson would be the guy if I was going to go cheap. Way more than Odorizzi, Dean. Way more than Odorizzi.
Odorizzi, I'm playing Baltimore. I'm not playing Odorizzi.
I'm playing Baltimore too.
Baltimore is my third favorite team tonight. Like, I think, would you agree that Houston, we'll talk bats in a second, obviously, but would you agree that Houston and Cincinnati are basically in their own tier and then there's kind of a drop and then it's, I think Baltimore is my favorite team next. You can make arguments for Milwaukee. I just hate trusting that team. They're terrible, but they have a nice matchup. Obviously, Arizona, same deal. Like it's two rough pitchers, two rough offenses. For me, Baltimore's my third favorite offense.
Well, I think Houston's the top stack on the slate, but I also think they're going to be the highest owned slate, a 6-game slate. Baseball has a ton of variance, so I'm fading Houston, even though I do think they're the best play. Yeah. So I'm stacking Cincinnati and Baltimore. Like that's the kind of build that I'm looking at right now. So, and I kind of pieced it together with a couple Arizona bats, but messing around with Seville as my SP2, I don't know if I even have to do that. So, I think obviously when you're looking at this, I think that it's clear that Houston's the best stack. Cincinnati's right there up there with them. And then you can look at Baltimore, Milwaukee, Oakland, Arizona to kind of, maybe even Minnesota to kind of end out and figure out your lineups.
One last thought as far as Gibson, by the way, he's 37th. Pitches thrown on average 90, exactly 90 per game. He's put up no less than 12.7 DK points in his last 10 games. I hate to sort of game log, but that's just right there. He hasn't gotten blown up. And by the way, 3 of those last 5 against Houston, that last one, his worst start was against Houston the third time around in the matter of in his last 5 starts. So pretty quickly that Houston lineup was seeing him a good bit. But he can go deep and, Oakland's fine. It's a fine offense, sure. But, Gibson just kind of sort of finds his way to be okay. And I'm fairly certain I meant to check as far as what's that guy's name, Blake or something like that, the Twitter account. The roof is closed in Texas tonight, correct? Do we know?
Pretty sure it's closed. I
assume it is closed. Let's see. It's Ranger Blake, by the way. It's all this guy tweets out, right? John Blake. Let's see. The Rangers.
He knows what's up.
Yeah, the roof at Globe Life will be closed on Monday. There you go. I think it's in Nevada as well, too. I'm fairly certain I saw it as well. Anything else as far as pitchers? You want to give us a summary?
I mean, pitchers are interesting today. I think today, obviously Darvish, Molly, Montas, Seville, Aloze, Urias all make a ton of sense for a 6-game slate. If you want to save some money, I think it's Gibson. I think I'm with you on that. I definitely am a little bit more worried now that Roth updated his weather report to it being orange. Definitely a delay with a chance to postpone.
Oh.
He still expects them to play, but that obviously adds some fun into the slate.
That's one way of saying fun. That's the interesting thing because I was looking at it earlier today and I was like, I'm not going to freak out about it, but I didn't want either pitcher, so I'm like, just whatever. We're most likely going to get this game in. Maybe we have a delay. We shall see. Roth, of course, will be on crunch time later, I believe, with Cards and Dave Potts. Jesus, good. But the other part of the weather that's actually positive, it's 88 degrees in Baltimore, and the wind's blowing out 10 miles per hour or so. So it's great hitting weather, assuming it doesn't rain. Yeah, but I don't like that update as far as Roth, and Roth will give you the most up-to-date update when it comes to the game on crunch time. Take you guys all up to lock. He'll let you know it's a 7:05 game. He'll let you know at 7 o'clock what to do, and he goes back and forth sometimes depending on what he's looking at during the show and the updates as far as the radar. But yeah, and if it's yellow, he gives the yellow. I'm gonna chance it, obviously, and I'm mostly just playing tournaments tonight, so I don't care. Whatever, my game gets postponed or blown, whatever, rained out. There's a slate tomorrow, right?
That's right.
And maybe that's some news ownership. The Minnesota lineup
and just for you, Hunter, Savalier, Dean Savalier. When we're talking fast, especially me, I don't care. It's Savalier. There you go. Moving on.
We got Boomstick Nelly Cruz. He's in the lineup. Arise is leading off. It's another cheapie.
Donaldson's out.
Yeah, but no Donaldson. Arise, Buxton, Larnick, Cruz, Kepler, Polanco, Kirilov, Jeffers, and Andrelton Simmons for Minnesota. Yeah, hitters, catchers. Are you excited to talk about some catchers tonight?
I'm always excited about catchers. I think this is the most I spent on a catcher all season, though. $3,700 is really like breaking the bank over here as far as catchers go. But I love Stevenson. He's batting fourth. He's going to be the most popular catcher on the slate for a good reason. A lot of power against left-handed pitching. Hap stinks. So I think this is a spot. Stevenson, Tyler Stevenson is, I think he's the top catcher on the slate. I think if you want to punt, Severino, Pedro Severino against Jake Odorizzi would probably be the punt because, catcher stinks today. Like, I hate playing chalk catchers. I really do.
I was just going to say, I hate it too. Stevenson's going to be like 35% owned or something like that. And he's fine, and the price is good. And, Hap is, one of the most attackable pitchers in the slate on the road. So things are going pretty well. You have 5 ABs there. All the reasons, but, it's baseball and goofy things happen. But the other part is like, okay, let's say I'm not going to play Stevenson. Who's the pivot? There isn't run. Like, there's nobody that's good, really. Steve, obviously Contreras is fine. Smith is fine. Neither are in, great environments tonight, but doesn't mean they can't overcome it. There's really nothing to like. Just play a catcher in your stack. I know it's kind of like the cop-out, but sure, I guess you can.
Maybe Navarez. Like, if you want to pay up to be different, Navarez against Kelly.
Yeah, you can do that. I don't want to do that, but I understand why one would.
He's probably the best option to get different. Like, we obviously have the running joke where I like to punt catchers, and it's not really a joke. I really do like to punt catcher, and I hate playing chalk catchers. But I think if you want to get different today, I think you're going to have to pay up to a guy like Navarez or like Will Smith to just get different.
Jacob deGrom just stuck out Acuna for the second time. 42 pitches, 3 innings, no hits, a walk, and 5 strikeouts. Dude,
he walked
amazing.
the pitcher.
Is that who he walked?
That's what chat said.
Oh, deGrom is so good, man. Stay healthy. I was making fun of Mike Francesa on the pre-show. He's tweeting out that he's got to learn how to pitch through the injuries with the hurt. You have the guy signed for like the next 3 or 4. This game is very important. Game 75 or whatever. He's got to learn how to pitch through it. First base. This is the start of Chalk City, I suppose. Gurriel, is that the first place we're looking as far as first baseman?
That's first place you're looking for sure. Because you like chalk, but I love Mancini today. I think Odorizzi, right-handed power bats crush Odorizzi, and they have throughout his entire career. This guy's a massive reverse splits guy. So I love Mancini. Like, I have him as like one of my top overall hitters on this slate today. So love this spot for him. If the weather holds off, obviously we're going to be watching crunch time. Listen to Kevin Roth. If he's out, that takes away Gurriel too.
Mm-hmm.
So
Olsen.
Then what do we do? You play Olsen against Gibson, I guess?
Sure. He's electric, Matt Olsen, and the ballpark obviously not great, not like Yankee Stadium this weekend, but his home ballpark's not like anything to speak of, and he wallops homers out of there all the time anyway. Otherwise,
maybe my boy Joey Votto, lefty. If you're stacking Cincinnati already, he might be like the way to make your Cincinnati stack different if Baltimore Houston rains out.
Did you pay attention to Votto this weekend? You happen to see like him and the interaction, and you get ejected in the first or second inning. He was arguing something. I didn't see what he was actually arguing.
Nice.
He was upset. He got kicked out, and there was a social media, like there's a mom took a picture of her daughter. Like it's like, oh, this is my daughter's first game, and she's like a cute little like 4-year-old, and she's got a Votto shirt, and she's like crying, and she was so bummed that like Votto was ejected from the game, and Cincinnati got caught wind of it, and he sent over a ball, and he said, I'm sorry I didn't play the entire game. And then the next day he went, took a picture and like signed something for her. It was really sweet. It was really nice. By the way, BBP, I happened to notice this over today. I always kind of glance at it. There's 2 guys on Cincinnati. Votto against J-Happ, but I'm not a whatever BET. I think it's something. It's whatever. It's worth mentioning. 23 at bats, Stevie. 23 at bats for Votto. 9 homers. 9 hits. 4 doubles and a homer. 7 strikeouts, which is weird. It's either he's hitting, striking out, or he's getting a base hit. Castellanos, we'll talk about New Castellanos soon enough. 12 for 22. 2 doubles, a triple, a homer.
Shocking.
Yeah, Castellanos has absolutely walloped J-Happ. So both those. I mean, I don't know how much that moves the needle, but I just thought that was interesting. And I wanted to talk about Joey Votto because that was just a sweet little story. People saw that on Twitter. When one of those viral. Sometimes like social media is good, and like that was one of the times. I think it was kind of sweet. There you go. Anything else at first, or shall we move on?
I mean, yeah, like if Baltimore Houston kind of rains out, Christian Walker's cheap at first. He's batting 4th against Anderson tonight. Asdrubal, I would much rather go Walker, but I think Asdrubal, like those guys, obviously become a lot more interesting. Anderson doesn't strike anybody out, so Arizona would become way more popular if that Houston-Baltimore game rains out.
Yeah, stay tuned on that. What was it, orange? Is that what Roth gave it? Orange, yellow? What was the color?
He was straight orange. Now he's straight orange, though.
I don't like that at all. That's just one away from red, and red is scary. I can't play red, but well, we'll see. Second base, keystone position. Same game. Jose Altuve, he's found his power stroke. 7 home runs in like his last 13 games. He absolutely has walloped left-handers throughout his career. He stopped running, which is kind of annoying. I think he only has like 2 or 3 stolen bases this year. He's not as young as he used to be. I guess that's all of us, right? Just that's math, that's science. But he's like 32, 33 now. Altuve he used to like be a great jack in a bag candidate, but now the stolen bases aren't coming along. But the power is still there. The ballpark's great, assuming the weather holds up. I assume you like Altuve. Feel free to add on, but give me the pivots away from Jose.
Yeah, I mean, if this game plays, obviously Altuve is one of the top second basemen on the slate. Like him a lot. I don't love Jonathan India. Like, it feels so weird, like fading the leadoff hitter in your stack. But I mean, I feel like he's just way too expensive today. If I'm not paying up to get Altuve, I think this is a spot you kind of look for some value to kind of round out the rest of your team. You can look at Colton Wong against Kelly, Polanco against Molly. Batting leadoff, I do like Molly, but I do think that Polanco is okay. And the guy that I really like here is Tony Kemp, batting leadoff against Kyle Gibson on the road. Probably getting 4 at-bats, kind of locked in for 4 at-bats, batting leadoff on the road. So I think Tony Kemp is where you can save some money. And honestly, he doesn't project for a lot of ownership here at 3,100, batting leadoff.
Yeah, I mean, a rise on the other side, and that you mentioned India. And that's depending on where you're shopping. On FanDuel, India, I think it's 2.8 or 2.9. That's a good price. 5K on DK, that's a bad price. You can also argue it's baseball, and sometimes you like when players are overpriced because – and also, we have the salary to do it on this slate. You have some flexibility. Arai is not a big power hitter either, but you can get a couple hits. He's leading off there versus Molly. Just a cheap way, somebody leading off. It's kind of sort of somewhat interesting. You mentioned, who did you mention? Polanco.
Polanco.
Polanco at 4.6, and he's like down in the 6th.
I thought he was cheper because of like how the price, and like I realized he's 4.6, and I was like, I'm going to Tony Kemp. That was my thought process.
I'm on a little social media rant. Apparently, I was on Twitter a lot. Aaron Judge tweeted out there's a picture of Tony Kemp standing next to Aaron Judge, which is just great. I just love how baseball, like anybody can be a baseball player. It's like Aaron Judge tweeted out like one of these guys had 2 homers this weekend. It was Tony Kemp, who's like a foot shorter than him. Anything else of note as far as second base, or shall we get a move on and talk about the hot corner at third?
Let's go. Moving on.
Well, you can't play Bregman tonight. He's on the IL. We're assuming that Houston plays, but who knows? Stay tuned for that. Abraham Toro is 2.1K on DK. He's the chalk du jour. He's one of those guys that kind of sort of makes things work. But, what are the odds that Abraham Toro breaks the slate? Unlikely. But, the guys he gets you maybe break the slate, just kind of under the salary constraints. Third base, what are you looking at?
I know he's had a terrible year, but man, if there's ever a spot for Suarez to have a good game, it's against soft tossing J-Hap. So I like Suarez a lot. Everybody likes Suarez a lot. He's obviously going to be even more popular now that Josh Donaldson's not in the lineup. So definitely like him. If you want to get different, I think you get different with like paying up for a guy like Manny Machado. Machado is matchup proof. This is a lefty-righty matchup. I think that he's going to come in at less than 5% owned. So I like the idea of getting different with him. Asdrubal, we talked about him at first. I wouldn't use him at first because I think you'd use him at third base. But again, I just kind of want to see how the weather plays out in this Houston-Baltimore game because I don't think it affects third base as much, but I think it affects the rest of your build enough that, like, if Cincinnati becomes like 40% owned because this game gets postponed, then who do I pivot off of Suarez with? And I think that's when you're going to have to kind of make a decision whether you want to go to like Asdrubal and be different or like I said, go up to Machado or somebody like that.
Yeah, you mentioned Suarez, and I basically said, like, he's got 15 home runs, but everything else is terrible. He's basically been Mike Zunino. That's what my comp, right? He's Mike Zunino at third base. Just more or less all or nothing, which is fine. If he homers, if he doesn't, he's probably put up a 0 for you. And we know historically how he's absolutely, beat up on lefties as well. And J-Hap, it serves him up. So I like Suarez a good bit too. It feels like a good get right spot for him. Jump over to shortstop. We'll talk about some outfielders in a second, a couple stacks as well. Devin is going to be coming on shortly. Devin hopefully has come up with a trivia question or some kind of question, something where we can give away a week free of RG Premium. And again, chat, what up, chat? Like, subscribe, turn on notifications. Do appreciate all that. And fire off some questions. Myself and Stevie will be happy to answer them regarding, the slate. Tell us if it's for cash, tournaments, FanDuel, DK, all that good stuff. Details matter. Details help. Shortstop, what do you have for me?
I mean, I think Correa is going to be really popular. Josh Rojas is getting some love batting second against Anderson. I don't hate that. I like Freddie Galvis. If this game plays, you can kind of save some money here. If Tatis is in the lineup, and somebody in chat just said Tatis is in the lineup, so he's batting second in this lineup. So, I mean, I don't hate getting different with going like a Pham, Tatis, Machado type of like secondary stack, just to make your lineups different today. So, obviously, Correa in a great spot. Outside of that, like I said, maybe going down to like Freddie Galvis, depending on the weather in this Houston game.
Hey, this isn't supposed to be like a gotcha question, but this kind of surprised me. I saw it the other day. Whit Merrifield is leading the league in stolen bases by 5 stolen bases. He had 3 the other night. There's 3 players tied for 15 with 15. Trey Turner, Acuna, and this guy. Who else has 15 stolen bases? He's playing in the slate, obviously.
Fernando Tatis Jr.
No, he's got 13. That's a good guess, but he used to be a catcher, which is like, that's what's weird to me. He's a converted catcher. Kiner Falefa is tied for second in the league with 15 stolen bases.
All right.
Yeah, that was my reaction too. A little bit of pop.
Right.
I didn't know that. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I didn't know he had that kind of speed these days. But and he leads off, and I know we like Montas. Just I always like players that have different routes to get in there, and not necessarily for tonight. It's like, that's an interesting thought. I think just to have going forward. If you're looking for a punt, there you go. Okay, get yourself a cheap stolen base at a Kiner Falefa. Let's get a move on. Let's jump to the outfield. We want to get to the questions as fast as possible. What do you have for me as far as outfield this evening?
I mean, Nick Castellanos is like my favorite play on the slate. I think he's the top hitter on the slate. So I guess that's where we can kind of start. Aquino, Mountcastle, these guys I think are fantastic plays as well. I like Baltimore. So like Cedric Mullins, like Baltimore was rolling this weekend, and they get Odorizzi here, and I think that they could keep it rolling in this spot. So I like them a lot. I think McCormick, if you want to save some money, he's like 3,100. But just kind of looking at this slate overall, if this game does get postponed, especially if it happens before lock, it changes the entire slate. So it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with this weather, because they haven't even announced yet that like this game's going to be delayed. So just kind of patiently waiting to see what we get over the next like 45 minutes for this Houston-Baltimore game.
Yeah, Chiefs.
It's the first game on the slate too.
Well, it's not just the first game of the slate. There's an hour between this game and the next game. So and if you see the 8:02 or 8:03, I'm sorry, 7:02, 7:03, 3 minutes before the slate locks, if you see the game is canceled, you don't have to make lineups. Just backload it and figure it out. Just take all the guys out in Houston, Baltimore, put in whoever, and then you'll figure it out. You got yourself an hour to figure it out. But yeah, be alert, be aware of these things. You mentioned Aristides Aquino. He's really, really cheap on FanDuel, 2.1K over there. Really a ton of power. 3.5K on TK. There is a potential for the hook. Naquin did not crack the lineup. I know Cheese wrote about this in his article today. And Aquino is actually in the lineup. He's on the field. He's not DHing. Jesse Winker, Mr. Steal Your Girl, the flirter, is actually the DH tonight. Aquino, it doesn't mean he can't bang one out in the second inning, and who cares? But there is a pinch hit risk with Naquin lurking when Happ comes out of the game, a righty comes out of the bullpen. And I know sometimes I overthink these things. Just 2 lefties in the bullpen there for Minnesota. Mostly righty dominant. Just a thought. Just throwing that out there. But I guess we should turn. Well, give me a couple of stacks you like. Of course, the people who are listening pay attention, and they know what you're on already. But to reiterate, for those that just tuned in, favorite stacks tonight.
Cincinnati, favorite stack, especially with the weather concerns. I'd have Baltimore ranked second, but if that game ends up getting rained out, Arizona would be the team that I think I'd pivot to. They're not getting a ton of ownership, just looking at projected ownership and stuff. So if the Baltimore-Houston game gets rained out, I'm still going to stack Cincinnati, but I think I'm going to pair them with either Arizona or Milwaukee because I feel like they have 2 of the better matchups, and I think that's kind of where it kind of sets up.
I just want to add this. That Baltimore game is just kind of sort of somewhat dicey. At 7:05 and we don't know and they're on a delay and like they say, well, we'll check back in an hour or whatever. Don't roster 1 player or 2 players or 3 players in that game. Roster, 6 or 7 or 8 or 4 or 5 or 0. Like there's no, don't use your one-off in a Houston Baltimore game that may not play. It's just a terrible idea. Would you agree with that thought process?
Yes.
All right. If you didn't, that would have been a fun conversation. Hey, Devin.
No, I disagree, Dean.
Well, Devin, you got to break the tie. What would you do?
Kind of teed him up there, didn't you?
I put pressure on you, by the way. Did you come up with some sort of a?
Yeah, sorry, I had to go and assemble the team here to come together with an idea for this question. Dean just pivoted through at the beginning of the show here toward me. But yeah, here we are. In honor of the Morning Grind's 1000th episode, we wanted to tip our hat by seeing how many home runs did Barry Bonds need to get to 1,000. First person in chat to guess that.
Wait, how many
home runs does he need? Did he need to get to 1,000?
So how many short is he of 1,000 in his career?
Correct.
Do you know the answer to that question without looking, Dean?
He's got like 715, I believe.
Gosh. No, Dean, he has 762. We're on delay.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, well, does somebody in the chat already answer?
Dean.
Well, no, but the answer is not that number. It's like 2 and change.
Yeah, the answer is 278. Derek already got it.
238.
238. You're right.
Wait a second. You said I didn't know there would be math.
Well, that's what I came up with, Dean. And to put
we just gave out the answer.
Yeah, so
people are like,
still no answer.
Nobody's guessed it.
There we go.
There
White
it is.
Rock.
Finally.
All right,
Devin. What was the less confusing question you did not go with?
Dean, I was trying to come up with something in honor of the 1,000th episode. The 1,000th episode that I heard.
Yeah, that word was throwing me off. I can't say that word.
Oh, you were floundering there for a second, but it was good.
I still can't say it.
White Rock in chat. 238. That was not the correct answer.
What is the official?
Oh answer? No, they did come back with it. So yeah, White Rock in chat. Hit me up on Twitter at DevoCanevo. I'll put it in chat here.
All right. Thank you, Devin, for coming up with it. I know you're the best in the biz, and I know you can on the fly you can adjust. That's why I can throw those things.
The secret that nobody knows is below the camera. I have another set of arms below me that I can just do other things at the same time. So I have actually a lot of questions saved though, so we can jump into those. Stan would like to know DK tournaments thoughts on Molly and Urias as SP pairs. Stevie.
I mean, I've already said it. I like it. You know, I like Molly a lot. I mean, Urias not my favorite, but if you're gonna play like a chalky stack and you are trying to make your pitchers different, I think he is somebody you could take a shot on. I don't like it as much with Tatis in the lineup, but yeah.
All right, Dean. Did you mention anything about Montas and sticky stuff?
No, we didn't. He's been in a groove of late, and like I assume I didn't dig in and look at his like his spin rates. I don't know if you did, Stevie, or not, but I assume these pitchers have been adjusting, waiting for this tonight to happen the last few outings.
I kind of gave them like a month to really before they really crack down on it.
Yeah, and he's been really solid the last month. So I don't know. Somebody's gonna get caught, I guess, at some point. But there's also like this thing where if you get caught, you lose a man for your roster for the next 10 days too, which hurts the rest of your team. So I don't know who's gonna be trying it. Maybe they're gonna make an example out of somebody, but I assume he's like clean or gonna be pitching clean. And
can I like give you a hot take? I think it's gonna be a bullpen person. I don't think it's gonna be a starter. I think a bullpen, somebody out of the bullpen is gonna get caught.
I think it's like a scapegoat. They're gonna need to throw somebody to the wolves.
No, I just don't think like. I don't think a starter is going to get caught. I think it's going to be a bullpen guy.
All right. Well, we'll move on. Shannon wants to know: are the extreme hitters umps blind? I was wondering if this was a question toward the DeGrom ump in today's game. Is that what that was?
I don't know what's going on in that game, to be honest. I can just I'm not watching it. We're doing a show, but I mean, look, I don't obsess. I'm curious what Stevie thinks as far as the extremes. By the way, extreme hitters umpire for Darvish and Urias as well. We got all the umpires. So the extremes tonight for Darvish, Urias, Odorizzi, and Aiken, assuming that game plays there. Stevie, how much do you care about that?
I think it depends on the pitcher. Because, so what did an extreme umpire, hitter's umpire, and a pitcher's umpire, the difference is the extreme pitcher's umpire is going to have a little bit bigger of a zone, and he's going to call the corners a little bit more for the pitchers and maybe give like if you have a pitcher that gives like a ball below the knee compared to an umpire that doesn't give a ball above the knee, that's going to be like the difference between like an extreme hitters and an extreme pitchers umpire most of the time. There's obviously some difference in there, but overall, it's usually just zone related. It's not balls and strikes and stuff like that. It's usually zone related. So I always like an extreme pitchers umpire, but you have a guy, man, I'm trying to think of somebody off the like top of my head. I can't think of anybody, but Greg Maddux. Greg Maddux is a perfect example. The guy could pinpoint location. So when he would have an extreme pitcher's umpire and he was going to get a ball below the knee, you could bet your ass that he was going to use that all night long. So, I mean, Miles Mikolas would be the guy that like pops in my head the most because he was like a guy that could use his control. Where like, all right, so maybe if I have a guy that walks a little bit more, an extreme pitcher's umpire helps, but I think it's more related to control things.
Greg Maddux versus Livan Hernandez, the Marlins and the Braves. Eric Gregg is the umpire. It's the wildest thing you'll ever see. Eric Gregg is calling pitches a foot outside. It's Livan had like 14 strikeouts, complete game. It's like a 1 or 2-0 game. That's how the Marlins knocked the Braves out in 1997. Devin, we don't have time for this though because we're in lightning round.
No, we don't. We don't. We are in lightning round.
That's okay. We have plenty of time.
Yeah, we got time, and we don't have that much more. Derek wants to know: is Odorizzi really going to end up at 24%? You guys think on DK?
I think it will come way down because of the weather,
and also because I think people are going to realize Gibson's just as good, if not better. And people, I think that's a bad number. I don't know if that's where we're at here at RG, but like obviously the closer we get to lock, the more refined it is, and I would take the under on that.
Oh, chat is loving the balls and the knees conversations.
So what's funny, Dean, is like it's actually gone up. Like projected ownership is up to 30% on Jake Odorizzi now. I don't know.
Okay. I feel like I'm missing something.
Well, Eric would like to know thoughts on Urias, DK. I think we touched on that plenty, right?
He's in the pool for sure.
Yep.
Like he's not like the first guy in, but if you're running 150, if you're running 20, I think he cracks your lineups. He's got to get in a couple.
Yeah, probably could do much worse.
Yeah.
Let's see. Moving on to Mike's question. Wants to know the home run picks for tonight. Dean, you got a guy?
Let's see. Home run picks. Well, they were in the Baltimore-Houston game. I'll yield to Stevie, and then I'll give you a couple answers in a second.
I'm sure his were in the Baltimore-Houston game as well.
No, give me Nick Castellanos and Mr. Stevenson. I'm going to give you a catcher because that's what I always do on this show.
All right. I'm going to say, did not give myself enough time here. I'm going to say DJ Stewart, and I'm just going to assume this game plays.
Baltimore anyway.
Boom Boom Mancini and DJ Stewart. We get a couple homers on the Baltimore side. And Mullins is, he always hits homers. So, yeah, sure, Mullins, why not? Throw out 3 guys. 2 of them hit it.
And let's see. Eric was asking about thoughts on Kelly on SP, or SP on DK. I think we touched on Kelly, but there was a second question thrown in there. Arizona stack. Doing that at all? I think, Stevie, you said you were, right?
I do like Arizona stack. I made an argument, a pretty strong argument for Merrill Kelly on the morning grind today. I don't think you need him, but I don't think he's the worst play if you're playing multiple teams and you want to play him. This lineup stinks. The lineup is really bad. Merrill Kelly is not great, but the lineup is terrible. So I definitely think that if you want to play Kelly, you can. Somebody
in chat is making a pretty drastic statement here about the status of the weather here. So
what are they saying?
Saying that the game's delayed, but I haven't seen any notification yet. So we'll have to keep an eye on that. But unfortunately, we are at the end of our show here, Dean. If you want to take us home.
Sometimes the delay is good, though. They just kind of let you know, and we're going to stick it around and that kind of thing. And Roth, of course, will elaborate
on that. Yeah, I think he's mentioned that in his note that it was perhaps an expected delay with the weather coming in. That obviously that ups the risk of postponement, but they could be intending to just wait it out.
Stevie, give us 20 seconds about the morning grind and your promotion.
Listen to the podcast tomorrow. It's episode 1000. I would appreciate it.
Yeah, they're giving. You got to tell them you're giving away stuff, though. People love.
If they listen to the podcast, Dean, they'll know that I'm giving away stuff. Gosh.
What if I'm on the fence, though? I'm like, oh, you're giving stuff away. Now I'm gonna listen.
Well, if you're on the fence, then don't listen.
Stay tuned for crunch time. If you're on the fence, don't listen. If you are on the fence, you want to hear what Roth has to say as far as that Houston game. Stay tuned for crunch time. You got Dave Potts. He's as good. Also talking about some of his picks he likes this evening. Thank you to Devin for producing the show and coming up with a fabulous trivia question on the fly. That was Stevie. This was baseball. I was Dean. We're out of here.